April 26, 1986. After a terrible accident and mass evacuation, many people left their homes. They fled the unseen radioactive danger. But not everyone was ready to leave. Why did they return to the zone of death? This is their home. This is where their roots are. They don't want their past to disappear. They have chosen to live in the midst of danger. They have learned to live outside human society. And they won't retreat. These people have chosen to live outside the rules. A journey into the heart of a devastated country. Ghosts of Chernobyl, settlers of death. It is hard to imagine today that in 1986 one of the biggest disasters in the history of nuclear power took place, the explosion of Unit 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine. Radioactive material was released into the atmosphere, contaminating large areas. The accident forced people to leave the villages and towns they had built. Industrial enterprises came to a standstill. Individual houses and entire settlements were destroyed and buried. Everything within a 30-kilometer radius of the Chernobyl plant was in the radiation zone. Many years after the disaster, we travel to the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, one of the most mysterious and least explored places on our planet. In this documentary, we will tell the stories of the people who became known as self-settlers. Despite the dangers, many indigenous people decided to return to their ancestral lands, their homes, and their former, pre-accident lives. Many of them have to live in areas that are still contaminated with radiation. They face threats to their health and lives, and are surrounded by constant danger. We will show how they fight against danger and loneliness, how they find strength and confidence in the future. Their story is one of how love for their homeland can turn ordinary people into true heroes, ready to face their destiny. On May 3, 1986, following the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, 15 villages were evacuated in one day, displacing some 10,000 people. All these villages are located in the 10-kilometer exclusion zone. From 3 to May 7th, people left another 43 settlements, including the town of Chernobyl. 28,500 people were evacuated. By mid-May, another 2,000 people had left 7 settlements. The evacuation of a settlement took between 4 and 8 hours. The village of Pasiy, like other settlements around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, was evacuated at the end of April 1986 because of fears of radiation contamination. Before the accident, 681 people lived in the village, but after some time 8 people returned to their homes. Before the accident, the village had an 8-year school, a club, a library, and a collective farm. But now everything is overgrown with trees and bushes, and houses, and buildings are gradually falling into disrepair. Today, there is only one resident in the village of Opachichi. Behind a wooden fence is a small house where a lonely grandmother lives. She is 95 years old. She has lived in the Chernobyl zone for 26 years. Years ago, other migrants lived in the village, but when they died, the grandmother was left alone.
Я синок усе вмію робити. І косить, і те, щоб ще в мене було трошки сили, я б до цього двора пусткою б. А то теж зятю одного давав. Темно, красний такий. Це в бабі і та баня була.
Душ літній, так?
Да, вже там щось нема каві.
Her household includes a vegetable garden where she grows most of her food. These indigenous people of Polesie are forced to live outside human society without the support of the state and official authorities. They do not need help from the state. Their life in the Chernobyl zone is officially illegal. The outside world calls them Chernobylites, ghosts, or death settlers. They are usually very young indigenous Polesie people who want to preserve their old way of life. Residents of the Chernobyl zone have developed their own strategies for surviving and adapting to life in this harsh environment. The grandmother is involved in agriculture, growing potatoes, vegetables, berries, and fruit in her vegetable garden near the house.
А картопельку он посіяла, то буде, якщо баба буде жити. Треба жити.
And although much of the food grown in the garden can be contaminated with radionuclides, Granny is sure that living in such conditions is harmless. She believes that if radiation cannot be seen or heard, it means there is no radiation and nothing to worry about.
Забивали голови, що гвалт тут радіація, нельзя жити, нельзя нічого їсти, нічого. Ну, нехай так буде. То де та радіація? Нема, значить? Я не бачила ні одного врача, ніякого лікаря, а нічого. Работала в колгоспі, доярочкою, і свинаркою, і по тракторах, і по машинах, де тільки баби не було. І по сьогоднішній ще баба живе. І дякую Богу.
Grandmother fetches drinking water from a well at the end of a weedy road. With buckets full of water, it can be difficult for an old and lonely person to get to the well, especially in the snowy winter.
Все, я пустив, да. Так, так.
А тепер крути.
Осторожно, щоб я вас не засипав.
Ось тут підкавати.
А ви його просто так чіпляєте, чи ви просто опускаєте? Я понял.
Ниже, ниже. А тоді оцім прикривати.
Self-settlers adapted to the existing living conditions in the radioactive exclusion zone and gradually developed their own unique way of life. The former village of Torenci, like other settlements in the Chernobyl zone, was evacuated as a result of the Chernobyl disaster. It is located only 23 kilometers from Chernobyl, the site of the terrible nuclear tragedy in 1986. The village is surrounded by water on three sides, the Dnieper and Pripyat rivers. Here you will find a variety of beautiful landscapes. Around the village there are beautiful hills, lakes, pine forests, and meadows. The village of Torenci is considered to be the most ecologically clean settlement in the exclusion zone. But the heart of the small village still beats in the depths of the Chernobyl zone. Surrounded by picturesque landscapes, the village is home to those who returned to their homes after the Chernobyl disaster. Vasily Lavrenenko and his wife have lived here for more than 30 years. They returned to their home village a year after the evacuation. But fate can be cruel. A few months after this documentary was filmed, Vasily's wife died, leaving him to fend for himself. Vasily runs a small farm, growing potatoes and various vegetables in his vegetable garden.
А так сажаємо все. Картошку, помідори, огурці, цибулю, кабачки, гарбузи, чеснок, соняшники. Ще солодкої бразильської картошки насажала, батати, а вони не ростуть.
Vasily's pride and joy are his tidy beds and orchard. Basically, the survival of the villagers depends on what they can grow in their gardens.
І кавуни, і дині у нас, і кожен год садимо. Це і клубніка, ще багато чого, а тільки що толку мало.
Vasily collects berries and mushrooms in the forest and fishes in the rivers and lakes. The nearest shop is 30 kilometers away, in the town of Chernobyl. But once a month the shopkeepers come to Torenci to supply the locals with groceries. Vasily has almost no neighbors left, some died, others never returned after the evacuation. Now there are only a handful of families living in the village, and they are no longer young people. The village of Torenci, like many other settlements in the Chernobyl zone, has witnessed the death of its past. Before the accident, the village had 463 inhabitants. It had a secondary school, a library, and a village club. Destroyed walls of houses and buildings bear traces of the vanished era. This is a place full of life and dreams, where people once lived and loved, laughed and cried, dreamed and created their unforgettable stories. The life of the self-settlers is one of almost complete autonomy. Living outside human society, without the support of official authorities, people rely only on their own strength and resources. In this Chernobyl world, without human support, they have found their own meaning of life. Their life is a constant struggle against difficulties and loneliness, harmony with nature, and hope for the future. We see how love for the homeland can turn ordinary people into true patriots, ready to face any difficulties and dangers, and confidently go towards their destiny.